Hi, Stay Steady Vermont volunteers. I wanted to take just a couple of minutes to clarify questions that I've heard arise on the paperwork. So here goes. There are two main pieces of paper that you're going to leave with the participants after you do a screening. The first is the one we call the Take to Doc form. Looks like this on one side and this on the other side. It prints in color or it prints in black and white. Either one can be used. The site coordinator printed it in color today, so I got some extra copies. Nice. The second piece of paper is called the take-home sheet, and it looks like this on one side with results, and this on the other side with recommendations. We're going to start with the Take to Doc sheet, because the Take to Doc sheet has the self-assessment tool on one side. This is the tool that the participant, the person that's coming to the event to be screened, they filled it out themselves. It's a series of yes or no questions that they answer themselves. The site coordinators know that people need to fill this out before they go to see you for their screening. So collaboratively, you all encourage people to fill their self-assessment out while they're waiting for the slideshow to start, or while they're after the slideshow and they're waiting for their turn for the screening. This needs to get filled out by people before they come see you for the screening. So that's one side there. Now we're going to skip to the results side of the take-home sheet, because this is kind of the working document that you have facing you while you're doing the screenings. You do the timed up and go, you enter the seconds as a result. You do the 30-second chair stand, you enter the repetitions. You look at the table for age and gender-based norms, and you enter that number there. You write in the number of seconds they keep their balance in the highest level position that they achieve, and you write those in there. And the timed up and go compared to the 12-second cutoff, the 30-second chair rise compared to norms, the 4-stage balance test compared to the baseline point of third position for 10 seconds can indicate whether that particular test results in a risk factor, yes or no. So that's the results form. Now we're going to take those results and we're going to go back to the Take to Doc form. We're going to do the Take to Doc form and flip it over onto the other side. There's a long list of risk factors on the other side. Don't panic. You don't need to fill out all these categories. You don't need to put a yes, no in every checkbox. The results that you just finished on the other take-home form are found also right here. You don't need to write down the actual time or the number of repetitions or the position. You just check off whether or not that triggers a risk factor in the column over here. So you translate that information from the take-home sheet to the Take to Doc sheet, and you have that right there. Then you flip this over and you look at some of the answers to the self-assessment questions. The first 5 questions have information that will help you with the first 2 risk factors listed here under falls history. So it tells you whether they've fallen in the past year and whether they're worried about falling or whether they're feeling unsteady. So those answers here allow you to put answers into this part. With answers to falls history and data from the performance measures, you can then go back to that algorithm that you learned in the orientation, and you can crank through that and make a statement as to whether this person is at high risk for falls, medium risk for falls, or low risk for falls. You don't have to, and we don't expect you to. We don't want you to take the time to fill in medical conditions or medications or vision or postural hypotension. That's not what we're offering people at this screen. If there's a professional there that could do orthostatic checks, that would be great, but it's not an expectation that you're going to do that in the course of your 10-minute long screen. You're going to focus on the performance measures. So once you know that somebody's high, medium, or low risk, then you can conclude with them, you can summarize with them on the recommendations part of this take-home form. So based on that category of risk, you can give them specific recommendations. Now I say specific recommendations, but many of the recommendations are universal for everybody. I'll go through those. Universally, we recommend that everybody exercises 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. You can remind them that they can start small with 10 minutes 3 times a day, or they can start small with 10 minutes and work up. But that's overall the recommendations that everybody works up to that point. Everybody needs to check their hazards at home. Some people might indicate that they need an OT to help them with that. Everybody needs to get their vision checked yearly. And really, everybody needs to see their primary care provider. But depending on what level of risk they fall into, is going to determine whether you say, listen, you need to make an appointment. If they're at high risk for falls, they need to take this information and make an appointment to go over those risk factors with their doctor. If they're at a low level of risk for falls, they can do it at their next scheduled appointment. And if they're in that medium area, well, that's going to take a little judgment. Mostly it's based on whether or not they're aware of their risk, whether they need to make an appointment in a hurry or whether they can wait until their next doctor's appointment. And then the exercise regime, you're going to be able to tell if somebody needs to address a joint problem with a PT before they could they could comfortably do a community exercise class, or if they seem like they're ready to go, recommend that they exercise within the community right off the bat. This other blank at the bottom is for other glaring problems that you might notice, like high-heeled shoes or really unsafe shoes with no heel counter, with slippery bottoms on them, poor traction. So shoe wear might fall in there. If you can see their feet and they've got poor foot care, then that might be another thing. If they're really at high or medium risk for falling and they haven't done anything in terms of using an assistive device, you might recommend in that blank that they try using a cane or a walker. Anything else that you professionally see as an easy, low-hanging piece of fruit that they could do to lower their risk for falls, that could go in that blank form there. So that's the paperwork. I hope it was helpful to hear this instead of pour through another email. I know it was easier for me to record it than it was to write another email and refer to those sheets. So it only took 8 minutes. I hope that's not too long. And I really thank you for everything you're doing. Enjoy the time you have with these wonderful people in your community who are eager to learn what you have to teach them. Thank you and stay steady.